All right, here's part two. We're going to go through three meetings and a revelation. So the first one that we get is on the 9th of February, 1834. This is the first meeting after those revised minutes. So we get section 102, and then away we go doing stuff. The historical introduction for this meeting is included in the meeting in the minutes presented here is the council's discussion and acceptance of the corrected 17 February minutes, as well as Joseph Smith's declaration that the High Council was, quote, organized according to the ancient order and also according to the mind of the Lord. The newly organized High Council then heard its first case, which concerned charges against Curtis Hodges Sr. for, quote, loud speaking and a want of clearness in articulation at various meetings. Several witnesses supported the charges, though no extant contemporary record identifies the precise circumstances, locations, or dates of Hodges' offenses. So, be careful about talking real loud and being clear in your articulation, because you'll get taken to court, apparently. I guess is what that means. Anyway, we also get some blessings from the meeting, and this is why I wanted to get into this, which I think is interesting. After much good instruction, Joseph the president laid his hands upon the heads of the two assistant presidents and pronounced a blessing upon them, that they might have wisdom to magnify their office and power over all the power of the adversary. He also laid his hands upon the 12 counselors and commanded a blessing to rest upon them, that they might have wisdom and power to counsel in righteousness upon all subjects that might be laid before them. He also prayed that they might be delivered from those evils to which they were most exposed, and that their lives might be prolonged on the earth. Joseph Smith Sr. then laid his hands upon the head of his son, Joseph, and said, Joseph, I lay my hands upon thy head and pronounce the blessings of all thy progenitors upon thee, that thou mayest hold the keys of the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven until the coming of the Lord. Amen. He also laid his hands upon the head of his son Samuel Smith and said, Samuel, I lay my hands upon thy head and pronounce the blessings of thy progenitors upon thee, that thou mayest remain a priest of the Most High God, and like Samuel of old, hear his voice saying, Samuel, Samuel. Amen. A very interesting meeting. I love these. There seems to be such a great amount of love in the Smith family. I just love that. Anyway, meeting the next day that we get. Part of the meeting dealt with the word of wisdom questions brought back from Orson Pratt and Lyman Johnson's mission to Springfield. The historical introduction gives us this. Using the case encountered by Pratt and Johnson in Pennsylvania to start a discussion about the revelation, the High Council decided that transgressing the word of wisdom was grounds for losing one's office in the church. Okay. The council's decision was published in a church newspaper in 1836 and provided church leaders with a policy that was referenced and enforced to one degree or another in the early 1840s in Nauvoo, Illinois. Wow. So a word of wisdom becomes a for real punishment sort of thing. The rest of the meeting dealt with some missionary assignments going to Canada, where Joseph and Sidney had just had a lot of success, and some other missions that were not fulfilled because of the needs of the saints and independents. So instead of going on missions, some of these people joined Zion's camp. The historical introduction gives us a little bit more. It says the 20th of February Council also scheduled a conference at Saco, Maine, on the 13th of June, 1834, quote, in answer to a special request of the church in that place, through the medium of a letter from one of the elders now laboring in that vicinity. So there's that meeting. 4 days later, we get another meeting. Orson Pratt and Lyman White had volunteered to go to Independence to get things squared away and help the saints who were struggling down in Missouri, but they had returned with the report that they had found. So the historical introduction gives us this. The two men also asked how and when church members would return to Jackson County. Joseph Smith then declared his intention to travel to Missouri to assist in redeeming Zion, and between 30 and 40 conference attendees volunteered to go with him. Joseph Smith may have volunteered to go to Missouri because of instructions given in a revelation dictated the same day at this High Council meeting that was held. That revelation specifically designated Joseph Smith as the, quote, servant mentioned in the 16 and 17 December 1833 revelation, who was supposed to raise the group that would redeem Zion. And the last portion of the historical introduction says this. Just 2 days later, Joseph Smith and the others designated in the revelation began recruiting additional volunteers to go to Missouri and eventually formed an expedition known as the Camp of Israel, of more than 200 individuals who traveled to Clay County, Missouri in the summer of 1834. So this meeting is where Zion's Camp officially starts, or maybe unofficially starts, but that's where it begins. So let's get into section 103, and we're going to get into a lot about Zion's Camp, but yeah. This is kind of a big one. There's a lot of surviving copies of this revelation. So the earliest copy that we get from this revelation is the Hyde and Pratt Notebook of Revelations. So this is the handwriting of Orson Pratt. It says so on the very last page. That's how we know. Well, there's also other things that they've done. We still have this in the Church History Library, and it's a really clean copy. So that's the earliest one that we get. We also get a copy in Revelation Book 1. This is the handwriting of John Whitmer. There's a little introduction that's sort of a superscript from Oliver Cowdery, which says, in the spring of 1834, before Joseph Smith Jr. started to redeem Zion. So we're about to start going and hopefully kicking some butt, right? Revelation Book 2 is in the handwriting of Orson Hyde. We get some corrections in an unknown hand. And we also get these sort of slashed graphite marks across a few pages, which doesn't seem to mean anything as far as we know. So they're very light anyway. So not sure what that was about. We get a copy of this in W.W. Phelps' diary. Another copy is called William W. Phelps's copy, and that's in his own hand as well. Wilford Woodruff has a copy in his Book of Revelations. Get that. Willard Richards has a pocket companion copy. We also get one found in the Newell K. Whitney Papers. Haven't Forgotten About You, that BYU collection. We get a copy there. We also get one in the Book of the Law of the Lord, and this is the handwriting of Robert B. Thompson. That's a really nice copy. One found in Heber C. Kimball's record book, and that's in the handwriting of William Clayton. So it's kind of interesting. It is not found in the original Doctrine and Covenants, but it is found in the manuscript history of the church. So there you go. So some circumstances to section 103. We get a little sec 103 that somebody wrote at the top of the notebook of Revelations. So that's all you get. Revelation Book 1 gives a revelation given at Kirtland, Ohio. There you go. We also get Oliver Cowdery's edition as that introduction, as we've already talked about. Revelation Book 2 adds a flourish and a date, which is Kirtland, February 1834. The rest of the copies give you the revelation at Kirtland or at a date. Basically, it's all the same as above. The manuscript history gives a document of a woman by the name of Abigail Leonard being deposed about violence. So being deposed or having a deposition is sort of an official statement about the facts of the case. In this case, it's about the violence against the people in Missouri. And then we get the following. It says, I received the following, revelation given February 24th, 1834. We get no change to the modern section headings, but we get some good data from the historical introduction by the Joseph Smith Papers editors, and it says this. The same day that this revelation was dictated, Parley P. Pratt and Lyman White, who had traveled from Missouri to Kirtland, Ohio, reported to the Kirtland High Council on the condition of the Missouri members, most of whom had taken refuge in Clay County. Pratt and White also asked the High Council, quote, how and by what means Zion was to be redeemed from our enemies, unquote. Joseph Smith then volunteered to lead an expedition to Missouri to assist Zion's redemption, and 30 or 40 others stated that they would go with him. Before adjourning, the council appointed Joseph Smith as, quote, commander-in-chief of the armies of Israel and the leader of those who volunteered to go, unquote. So what came first in all of this stuff, right? So it is difficult to determine whether the revelation motivated the decisions of Joseph Smith and others in the High Council, or whether those decisions were affirmed by the revelation's dictation. Regardless, the revelation addressed many of the issues discussed in the High Council meeting. Historical introduction also gives us, Joseph Smith and others quickly acted on the revelation's directions. Just 2 days later, he and Parley P. Pratt, quote, started from home to obtain volunteers for Zion, unquote. And Orson Pratt and Orson Hyde did the same. Lyman White and Sidney Rigdon, also appointed in the revelation as recruiters, apparently left Kirtland on the 28th of February. It is not clear when Hiram Smith and Frederick G. Williams and the other pair assigned in the revelation to recruit members for the expedition departed, but John Murdoch reported that Hiram Smith was at Edmund Bosley's home in Livonia, New York, on the 15th of March, 1834. For the next several weeks, these 8 men held meetings in which they preached, recruited volunteers, and raised funds to help restore the refugees to their homes in Jackson County. These activities ultimately resulted in the formation of the Camp of Israel, an expedition of more than 200 individuals that marched to Clay County in the summer of 1834. So some content and footnotes from this, and then we'll close up this part. The Revelation says this: "Because they did not hearken altogether unto the precepts and commandments which I gave unto them, but verily I say unto you that I have decreed a decree which my people shall realize, inasmuch as they hearken from this hour unto the counsel which I the Lord their God shall give unto them. Behold, they shall, for I have decreed it, begin to prevail against mine enemies from this very hour, and by hearkening to observe all the words which I the Lord their God shall speak unto them, they shall never cease to prevail until the kingdoms of the world are subdued under my feet." So footnote 4 to this says, a December 1833 revelation stated that the Lord had allowed church members to be expelled from Jackson County because, quote, "there were jarrings and contentions, envyings and strifes, and lustful and covetous desires among them." It also said that because church members were slow to hearken unto the voice of the Lord their God, God was slow to hearken unto their prayers to answer them in the day of their trouble. So further into the revelation we get, "Behold, I say unto you that the redemption of Zion must needs come by power. Therefore I will raise up unto my people a man who shall lead them, like as Moses led the children of Israel. For if ye are the children of Israel, and of the seed of Abraham, and you must needs be led out of bondage by power with a stretched out arm." Footnote 13 for this says, earlier revelations also designated Joseph Smith as one like unto Moses. So it's not just this particular revelation, which is kind of a bold thing to say, I might add. "Let all the churches send up wise men with their monies and purchase lands, even as I have commanded them." Footnote 18 for this says, acting on the counsel given here, church members in Lewis, New York, and sent John Tippets and Joseph Tippets to Kirtland in November 1834 as wise men appointed by the voice of the church. They came with cash and property totaling nearly $850, quote, "for the purpose of purchasing land in Jackson County or counties round about it for the inheritance of the church." Now, I would like that calling. Hey, you're going to be a wise man and go out and do this. Okay, gotcha. Anyway, text further gives us, "Let no man be afraid to lay down his life for my sake. For whoso layeth down his life for my sake shall find it again, and whoso is not willing to lay down his life for my sake is not my disciple." Now, footnote 21 for this clarifies something. It says, sometime in the fall of 1831, Joseph Smith, as part of his Bible revision project, changed the passage in Mark 8:35 that read, "For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it," to, "For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, or whosoever shall save his life shall be willing to lay it down for myself or for my sake. And if he is not willing to lay it down for my sake, he shall lose it. But whosoever shall be willing to lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it." That's the change. Revelation also gives us this: "It is my will that my servant Sidney Rigdon should lift up his voice in the congregations in the eastern countries in preparing the churches to keep the commandments." Footnote 22 for this says, which basically says, if you can't do service, do support. So it says, "In addition to attending the March 1834 church conference in Avon, New York, to recruit volunteers, Rigdon spake at an April 1834 conference in Norton, Ohio, about, quote, the revelation given requiring the saints to go up for the deliverance of those who had been driven from their inheritances, and urged the importance of an obedience to the same by those who could go, and those who could not go should help those who are willing to, should help those who are going to means for their expenses." So, if you can't go, then give us some money. But Joseph gets to go. So it says in the Revelation, "Therefore, as I send it to you, ask and you shall receive. Pray earnestly that peradventure my servant Joseph may go up with you and preside in the midst of my people and organize my kingdom upon the consecrated land." Footnote 23 for this says, As late as April 1834, Joseph Smith remained concerned that he could not be able to go to Missouri because of pressing debts. And we're going to get a lot into that in this episode. So the revelation ends with, copied by O. Hyde, 18 of August, 1834. So what's the aftermath of this? This formally called for Zion's camp to be organized. This is sort of a revelation saying, yes, we're doing this. Not just Joseph volunteering, but there's a little bit more official language here. This led to a series of very remarkable stories, and a few men did not return due to disease, cholera specifically. So no shots were fired, but most of the leaders of the church came from the camp of Israel. And it's shown to be one of the most important events that galvanized and trained these future leaders of the church. So you want to talk about Brigham Young, Heber C. Kimball, Wilford Woodruff, John Taylor. A lot of these men were involved in Zion's camp. And there was, like I said, there was also a lot of people who died from this. So it was a very major thing. And we're going to get into it now. So parts 3 and 4 of our little episode, we're going to dive a lot into the camp of Israel. And we actually don't have a ton of documentation because they were off doing a camp of Israel. We get a couple of letters, but that's about it. So stick around, and we're going to blow through it here on Filling in History.